Hey, this is Mike Schmitz, and these are my sermon notes from March 19th, 2023. The big verses that my pastor preached from today were Genesis 8:20 through 22. It says, "Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall not cease." And the big message that my pastor was talking about was building an altar. And so he made the point that the first thing Noah did when he got off the ark was that he built an altar. And then he continued to talk about what exactly is an altar. It's not this stone table that we think of from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, for example, right? But he said that an altar is a designated place where you meet with God. So the local church is a form of an altar. That is a place where God is. It's different live streaming than it is actually being in the congregation. Psalms talks about how where there is unity, that's where God commands the blessing. So when everyone is assembled together for the same purpose, same mind, they want to hear from God, that's different than just tuning into a message via live stream. And sometimes that's what you have to do. And there's a lot of things that you can learn through live streams and video courses and things like that. I make a bunch of video courses, right? But it doesn't replace the anointing and doing things the way that God has told us to do them. However, my pastor was kind of exhorting us today that we need to take that further and we need to build an altar at home. And this really got me thinking. I know someone who actually, when they built their house, they have this office and then they have one of those fake bookshelves. You can actually push the whole bookshelf in and there's like this little secret room. And they did that intentionally because that's their altar. They have a bunch of kids at home and so they can go in there and like you wouldn't know that this room is there. But they've got a whiteboard and some speakers. And so they'll go in there and they'll play worship music and they'll bring their Bible and they'll just pray and read. And that is inspiring to me. Now, I don't actually have the ability to do that in my physical home at the moment. That doesn't mean that I can't make a place for meeting with God. And that was actually something else that my pastor said. It's not just having a place, it's having a designated time. It's intending to connect with God at a specific time and in a specific place. When you do that, the distractions will be minimized, right? Because you know why you're there. You know what you're hoping to accomplish. And so for me, I feel that is at the beginning of the day, and we have this in our bedroom, we have this little electronic fireplace up against the wall, and then we have this rocking chair right in front of it. I like to turn on the fire. I like to sit in that rocking chair and do my morning devotional time right there. So that's what that looks like for me. But then taking it a step further and not just doing it first thing when I wake up, but actually putting it on my calendar. You know, what is the designated time? And that can't be the only time. Also, I think there's got to be other places where that's got to be kind of my default, what I'm looking for, right? Because God will speak to you at the altar. And again, it doesn't have to be the church building, but when you intend to hear from God, I believe that he will speak, but he's not going to do it if no one really wants to hear what he has to say. Likewise, if he tells you to do something and you fight against it and you don't do it, he may not be telling you the next thing, right? Because you haven't done the first thing. At least that's the way that he works with me. So I want to create this time, create this space. I believe that God is going to speak to me when I do that. Now, the other thing that my pastor was talking about with Noah specifically, and he had a whole bunch of examples from the Old Testament of the people who God did something for them and then they built an altar, right? But the name Noah literally means to bring rest, right? And so I want to ask myself the question when I am meeting with God at the altar, how can I bring rest to you, God, right? What is it that you want of me right now? And I think if I do that, then God will show me some things. And then the very last thing that I wrote down here, my pastor made the point, you can't have anybody else build your altar. You are the one that has to do it. Parents, you can't do it for your kids. They have to have their own encounter with God. So we have to prioritize this. We have to put in the time. But time spent with God is never wasted time. Time spent building an altar is never wasted time. So those are my sermon notes. Hope you enjoy them.